Skyrim is a land of contrasts, where vibrant beauty meets haunting desolation. But what truly makes its world so immersive? How you experience places is made up of so many factors. It's not just as simple as the land, the buildings, or the forest surrounding you. There's so much more at play without you even realising. Join me as we dive into the enchanting atmosphere and breathtaking scenery of The Elder Scrolls V. Before we get into things, I want to give a slight disclaimer. I messed up on the audio whilst recording these, so there's a slight echo effect in the video. It doesn't take away from the video too much, and it shouldn't be too distracting. But yeah, that's just bad management from my part. Sorry. Starting things off, the most noticeable part of any location in Skyrim is the landscape. What is its physical makeup? What can you see? Why are you there? Take Whiterun for example. It's the first major city you visit, and upon entering, you see it's quite a dense place. Lots of houses and market stalls. Many people roam in the streets. Overall, the scenery generates a warm feel and a welcoming atmosphere. To the left in the distance is a building of much higher stature and elevation, indicating some kind of authority over the rest of the city. When approaching this building, you see waterfalls cascading down rocky hillsides and pooling at the bottom, creating smaller streams which can be traced down to the market. All of this stemming from the top where this building rests. This is where the Jarl resides. The city of Whiterun is much like a city in real life. It can be quite daunting at first when you haven't been that often, but once you've been a few times, you know your way around and you feel more easy. It feels as though you belong in the city, rather than feeling like an outsider. Whilst journeying in the northern parts of Skyrim, near Winterhold and Dawnstar, the atmosphere is a dramatic contrast to the city life of Whiterun. Out in the freezing wilderness, you get the feeling that you're alone, and in comparison, the streets of Whiterun seem to be bustling and full of life. Whether you're traversing the icy forests or scaling the desolate mountains, everything around you seems barren, and there's little life to be found. The odd fox or goat may be seen along with the occasional rabbit, but these are typically the only friendly encounters you'll come across, because travellers are rare in these snowy areas. The rest of your battles will be met by dangerous creatures, like wolves, spiders, and maybe even something worse like an ice wraith. There's not a lot going on in the northern parts of Skyrim, and it leaves a lot to the imagination. There's a lack of buildings, a lack of people. It's mainly composed of forests and mountains. These icy areas are no joke, and no place to be spending a lot of time. You're usually there for some kind of mission, so the goal would be to get it done and get out, before you either freeze to death or get mauled by the wolves. There are a plethora of dungeons to explore across Tamriel, each with its own challenges. Ranging from simple caves inhabited by bears and spiders, to more complex dungeons requiring a series of puzzles to be solved in order to make your way deeper. And while I could have chosen a seriously niche dungeon, like one of the many Dwemer ruins that can be insanely convoluted, I decided to opt for a dungeon that nearly all players are familiar with, as it's the first major dungeon you encounter in the game, Bleakfall's Barrow. I won't be covering every inch of this dungeon as it's fairly large, but the first couple of sections showcase the overall feel for a dungeon in Skyrim. From the outside, the barrow appears to be monolithic. But once you enter it, it becomes apparent how claustrophobic it's going to be as you make your descent. The entrance to Bleak Falls Barrow has light coming through the rundown roof. And a couple of enemies with some homely atmosphere too, as they gathered around a campfire with some bedrolls nearby. The use of these things show clear environmental storytelling, which is often commonplace across your typical dungeon. Moving deeper away from the daylight, you start to feel more closed in and realise that you need to have your wits about you. Not only for the tight corridors and enemies that lurk, but also for the traps that wait for you. The only thing that guides you, besides the fact the path is quite linear, are the torches, ensuring you don't get lost while you take the plunge. If I had to come up with 3 words to describe any dungeon in Skyrim, it would easily have to be dingy, dark, and mysterious. You never know what's around the corner, or what you're going to encounter. Another key part that plays in building the atmosphere and immersion within Skyrim is the environmental sounds. The sounds that can be heard through the city of Whiterun are basic, but they make up a very crucial part of the immersion experience. You can hear the chatter of people in the streets, the trickle of water as it makes its way through the city, and the sound of work going on in multiple forms, via the blacksmith, the use of the chopping block, haggling at market stalls, and the sounds of fires lit through the streets to ensure that you can see when it gets dark, and occasionally the sound of children playing in the streets. All these sounds come together in an unorthodox harmony, enriching your experience while within the city walls. Really selling the fact that everything is alive, and there is a fully functioning society before you. Take a listen.
Brigands I can handle, but this talk of dragons? World's gone mad.
Careful if you cross the river to the east. Old Hajbar Iron Hand and his brigands are holed up in that cave. White River Watch.
The sounds in wintry areas like these are few and far between, much like their inhabitants. You're accompanied by sounds of gusty winds, brushing through the trees and carrying snow through the air. Paired with the sounds of your footfalls as you trod through the thick snow-riddled paths. The lack of commotion makes for an eerie experience, ensuring you're always on guard and alert, despite the dreamlike atmosphere that could easily send you off to sleep. Out in the wilderness, away from any distractions of the cities, you feel a strange comfort, and personally, when I was growing up playing Skyrim, I really enjoyed these areas. Walking along a trail to wherever I needed to be in the dead of night, with the only thing lighting my way being a torch in my offhand. It's times like these that really made me fall in love with this game, and how it makes you feel. Dungeons like Bleak Falls Barrow use minimal sounds. Often, less noise equals more atmosphere. You're surrounded by rushes of wind echoing throughout the chambers. The sound of cobwebs breaking as you walk through them, and the sound of stones falling from the ceiling. The cacophony drives home that this place is ancient, and not somewhere you want to spend a long time exploring. There are a wealthy amount of options better to be spending your time. As you may have expected, there is no such commonwealth inside these walls. You'll come across spiders and Draugr, along with the occasional bandit throughout your adventure, none of which offer pleasant noises and are extremely off-putting, especially the patter of Draugr's feet on the icy stone floor, and the clatter of spiders' legs as they maneuver around their nests. That's about all there is to hear in dungeons. Of course, some sounds differ across different caves and crypts, but it's mostly the sounds of emptiness and creatures lurking, waiting for your arrival. Take a listen. Up until now, I've taken you through the main scenery of Skyrim, and shown you what the world has to offer visually, combined with the noises that are offered by the environment. But what really ties everything together is the soundtrack. The music that plays while you're exploring, plundering, battling, and crafting is what really makes every moment in Skyrim special. The soundtrack for Skyrim, produced by Soule, is a thing of beauty. It makes you feel certain ways and has a profound effect on your emotions if listened to with an open mind. Take the song From Past to Present, for example. It's mainly heard while you're walking around the open world, looking out for new adventures and pursuing your quests. It has a cozy feel to it, and puts you at ease when you're outside of combat. Despite there being a huge choir of singers making for an almost deafening sound, it's strangely calm and relaxing. It's then followed up by a heavenly melody that makes you forget about everything else that's going on around you. This song, paired with the visuals of Skyrim, makes for an enchanting experience. It's a near masterpiece how the game combines visuals, environmental sounds, and music in such a beautiful way, even when you can't fully let go because you know there's danger around the corner. Observe these elements all together. For artistic purposes, I've removed any kind of displays or HUDs, and I let things play out, and to be honest, the immersion is truly something else. Another song that plays whilst inside city walls is Ancient Stones. The strings in this song invoke a calm feeling that reflects how chilled out the city can be. There's no immediate rush for anyone to do anything. Life is peaceful and tame. This song to me is almost rejuvenating. It not only puts you at ease whilst inside the city and doing your bidding, but it gives you life to go back out into the world and adventure some more. Here's all elements combined.
Come by Bellathor's shop at the market. I'm sure we've got something you need.
Disrespect the law and you disrespect me. Trouble?
From above ground to underground, the dungeon soundtrack varies depending on where you are and what you're doing. There are polar opposite orchestrations that play from when you're engaged in combat to when you're looting the various chasms of the dungeon. Silent Footsteps is one of the various songs you'll hear while exploring dungeons. It conjures a few different feelings. The opening raises a sense of mystery and reminds you of the unknown that lies ahead of you. While towards the peak of the song, a sense of unease is created, making sure you're watching your back and being vigilant as you press on. Here's everything put together. I think what's so beautiful about the soundtrack of Skyrim is how all the songs can work together and how it puts your mind at ease. It stops any unnecessary chattering in your brain and really makes you zen in and focus. Every time you play Skyrim, although the playthrough might be slightly different, you always get a good feeling. Skyrim makes sure you're engaged at all times, even when nothing is happening. The use of visual and auditory mediums conveys more than just a game. Skyrim could quite literally be viewed as a work of art in my opinion. The culmination of all these forms of communication I've spoken about throughout the video makes for a pleasantly unreal experience and creates memories that stick in your mind long after you've stopped playing. And this is putting aside all the other forms of interaction the game has to offer, like interacting with townsfolk and buying goods from them, or encountering a group of bandits on the road who threaten to take your life unless you pay up. The other game mechanics such as fighting, navigation, menus, and other more advanced features like survival mode and difficulty further deeper the immersion, building on this seemingly real world that is portrayed before you. I find it unlikely that anyone watching this video hasn't played Skyrim at least once in their life, considering it was released in 2011. But if you haven't, you should seriously think about giving it a go and let yourself get lost in the moment. For a title of its age, Skyrim still easily stacks up today, and certainly doesn't feel old or outdated. It's purely timeless. I want to thank you if you made it this far in the video. Your dedication means the world. I'd love to hear about your experiences in Skyrim and what you have to share. Also, let me know what you'd like to see next on the channel. I'm always looking for new content ideas. Until next time, thank you for the support.